How's it going, everybody? This is Mike, and I'm here with Ahmad Khan. Ahmad, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll try keeping it a little bit brief because my story can drag on for a bit. But basically, up until a few months ago, I was in the corporate world. I just left my full-time job to focus on real estate full-time. You know, I I've been through the whole '08 crash and everything, and essentially that's what drove me towards real estate because I was in automotive at the time in '08. I had a lot of people around me that lost pretty much all their life savings, in retirement, everything, and a lot of the people that I worked with were older, like closer to retirement age, and just seeing that impact, I always knew I needed something else in terms of retirement. I would say still had that corporate mind track that, become a CEO and everything. And I was on a good track for that. But always in the back of my mind, I knew I couldn't depend on retirement savings. Early on, I had a passion for real estate, wanted to get into real estate. So in 2012, I bought my first single family home. I converted it into a legal duplex. So one of the other things with my career path, I it's if you want to get to the CEO level and stuff, it's good to have international experience. And that was always on my mind that I would, at some point go live somewhere else, work somewhere else, which I kind of did because I was in a North American role. So I traveled a lot I still lived in Canada, but I was, in the US for a couple of weeks a month, in Mexico for a week a month, stuff like that. So I decided to do this whole legal duplex because that way, if I ever left, it'd be a rental property. Not that a single family home couldn't, but it was just more to be able to cash flow, renting out two units versus renting out one unit. And, the Canadian market, there's been crazy appreciation for the last almost 15 years, right? And it's still happening. So it was one of the things where I could afford to get into a house at that time, and then by doing the conversion, raise the appreciation of the house, be able to get two rents and actually cash flow again. That's the key in our business is if you can cash flow on a property, it's great. It's a great way to, you know, if you're thinking longer term, it's a great way to save money because half of the money you're putting into a mortgage, you're um, doing to pay off the principal, the other half is interest. But if you have then tenants paying off all of that, it's extra money in your pocket longer term. Again, for me, this was kind of a long-term retirement plan. So by the time I retired, I would have, a few properties or so free and clear paid off. At the end of the day, I owned a few myself, and I did a bunch of them pro bono for family. So I did one for two of them for my brother, each of my brothers. So I have two brothers, one for my parents, and then a couple of friends as well wanted some help with it. So with the friends, I did more consulting. For the family stuff, I was more the general contractor. And for my own, the very first one, I did all the work myself. Everything from framing, doors, windows, save some money. I would go on online classifieds and stuff, buy some used doors and get those put in and everything, try save money wherever I could. And I learned a lot through that experience. I got experience with, dealing with the city because there was a legal conversion. I gutted the entire place. So I did, the demolition myself. I did, like I said, framing, drywalling, mudding, taping, sanding, you name it. So this took me a while. Like the first one, even the upstairs I bought the place off older Italian lady that just passed away, and they literally had tiles like in the living room and everywhere on the main floor. Um, and so I had to break all the tile off the main floor and then do all the flooring and everything. And I know it's more experienced people are saying, why don't you just lay the flooring on top of the tile? And I probably could have, but for me, it was just more wanting to learn. By
Mhm.
time I was I lived in the place myself. So when I, got the people upstairs to leave after I got married, I actually put in hardwood floors even though it was always a rental property, I got a great deal on this hardwood flooring. Figured I'd never done hardwood, so it'd be a great way to learn how to do hardwood, and so I put in hardwood. I think I paid probably an extra $1,000 to do it, but and that being said, I lived in it for a few years afterwards, so it was good. We got great use of it, and I learned an extra skill that I didn't have before that. So that's what got me into this whole, what you call a second suite legal duplex conversion, was just a way to make extra money and cash flow. And like I said, then so I did the first one completely myself, minus the major electrical and major plumbing. And then the second one, I got a general contractor because I was a little bit busy with work, and that didn't work out too well. The general contract, lots of delays. Basically a lot of delays with him. You tell me one thing, never get it done. Took in a little bit of extra cash and then never did the work. So I ended up letting him go, because what I would do is I would pay all my contractors upon doing the work, and I would give them, if they needed some money for materials or something like that, I would pay them upfront for that. So that's what I lost. It was for, I think it was some money for flooring that he'd taken on from me, so he could go buy flooring, but he never bought it. So I let him go. And then I basically ended up managing that project myself after that. And no complaints, I still made a lot of money, but it gave me a little bit of experience working with contractors as well. And then, I managed all the subcontractors and stuff myself. For that second one, I did a lot of the work myself as well after letting that contractor go. It was a lot of getting back 5, 6 at night and working till 11, 12 at night, waking up in the morning, going to work, and then same thing every day. And then after that, like I said, I did some more for like my parents, my brothers, and I was the general contractor on all of those. So I would just get, based on what needed to be done, I would just get the subcontractors lined up and ready, because I built up some good contacts after getting the first couple done, for the plumbing work or electrical or the concrete work and all that sort of stuff. So I would just schedule times with people, confirm with them. I would get someone like my parents or my brother, or even, just leaving the door open or unlocked, or giving the key to the subcontractor the night before, something along those lines, or leaving it in the mailbox for them to go in and do the work. Now, that being said, now you can get like the electrical, the key codes and stuff like that. So it's much easier to do that now, and probably a little bit safer. But that essentially, is my background within real estate. And of course, those are buy and hold. So dealing with tenants and everything, getting the right tenants in there, making sure you don't rush in to get people in. Better to get good tenants versus bad tenants, and how to screen them, what type of people to bring in. There's a lot of laws against, being biased against people and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's your property. I've seen what bad tenants can do. So it's really important to get the right people in there, and, pick the best candidate. So I would always look for like the type of jobs, even look at what kind of cars they're driving. Does the car look beat up? Does it look clean? Just judge them on the way they're talking, walking, interacting with you, because I would always make sure I'm there for the showings, etc. So, I learned got a great deal of experience through that process. And then, I at the same time, I was still growing career-wise. My first, so after automotive, I got into consumer goods, and I spent about 13 years in consumer goods, and 8.5 of those years with one company. So I had a lot of growth there. At that company, decided to move to a not a bigger company, but more responsibility for myself. So I went from managing, a $250 million business to managing a $700 million business, which was part of like $1.5 billion operations. in Canada. So then I was managing like 5 categories. So again, I moved there for experience, but it just I think that really showed me, the differences in cultures in different places, and really made me question if, the corporate side of things is still what I really wanted to do. Made me, explore. I've always wanted to own my own business and do something on my own. Just never did it because I didn't know what it would be, and I think, just too comfortable in my corporate career at the time to bother thinking about doing anything else. So after getting married, kids and everything, and I would literally, I had days where I would work all night to have a presentation ready the next day. Because I would basically, part of my role last 6 years has been doing, presentations and reporting to senior leadership team every month. So like the CEO, CFO, etc. And that just, that took a lot out of me, I would say, and, made me really think about if this is really the direction I want to head. Because because I was getting paid great, but if you look at it by the hour, it wasn't that great. I was easily working 12-hour days. It wasn't worth the effort and time I was putting into it, and all the politics that are associated with it, and the reward that's associated with it. Right at the end of the day, unfortunately, it just doesn't stack up. At least not for me. So I started exploring, what other options I had. Real estate was a great one. It's a great way to build wealth. I had the experience. So that's what I started looking into more and more. I had some changes in my family situation, not changes of family situation, but my wife had to move to Detroit. So we moved over here from Canada, and I was still working through the whole COVID situation and everything up until a few months ago, and decided, to focus my energy fully on now doing syndications and commercial real estate, because it ties in well with my real estate experience and my corporate experience as well. So that's basically where
Okay. Cool. That makes a lot of sense. What's super fascinating, why I wanted to talk to you today, is the conversion of the single family homes. Are they single family or town? I'm sure they're single family. So the single family homes into multi-unit.
Yeah. So they're single family. What worked best were bungalows. Because you have the square footage upstairs, right? So it's essentially, it's a basement unit and an upstairs unit, or the main floor unit and the basement unit, and you convert the basements into that second legal duplex unit. So again, yeah. So like I was saying, the bungalows work best because you would have all your square footage on a single floor, and that way your basements were large enough as well. Versus, a 2-story, say if it's like 1,500 square foot home, that leaves you only with about, maybe a 600 square foot basement, because you would have like the maintenance room, the furnace room or whatever there as well, versus having like 1,100, 1,500 square foot bungalow main floor, which would give you over 1,000 square foot in the basement for living space. Right, so it'd be quite spacious. Looking at the height requirements, the water pressure, a lot of things. I would say I got lucky on my first house that I bought to do the conversion, because to do it legally, there are a lot of little nuances that you need to know about that can really squash the conversion if you don't have those available. I touched on a couple of things like the height requirement and water pressure. Those are big ones where the city can deny your permit, basically, because they'll give you the permit, but when they come do the inspection, when you're doing the work and you don't pass those things, then they won't basically pass the permit or make it illegal until that work is done.
Are these problems that you can identify before the purchase, or
For the most part,
is
yeah.
this something that can be mitigated against almost no matter what?
So I think if you spend enough money, almost anything can be mitigated, right? But these are things you can look at beforehand. So again, having that experience from the first one, so one of the things I did, because I didn't have any experience before that with construction side of things, I would literally, call in so I would identify what works needs to be done. I would call in 10 different contractors or like subspecialties for that work, and say, this is what I need to get done. How much is it? How are you doing it? What needs to be done. So they would go over like, okay, we need to do this and this and this, and this is the process we need to follow. And this is how much it was going to be. I'd say, okay, thank you. Have a few more people come through, tell me that. So I'd see, what really needs to be done. And then, luckily 2012 YouTube was well on its way, so there was a good amount of resources available online, so I would just throw YouTube on and do the work at the same time, and figure out how to do it myself. So that's,
Okay.
I would say, how I.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's it. That's how I learned how to do all of this stuff, was just kind of do a mix of calling the contractors in to see what they would do as professionals, and then look at YouTube how to do the work itself, right? So I learned a lot through that. And to answer your question about like, can you mitigate a lot of those things? Yes, again, like I said, the two main things, for this, the city was, are strict, strict on is the height requirement. So it had to be like 6'5" minimum completed, and the water pressure, because anything that's not covered for fire protection needs to have a sprinkler system put in. So if you don't have enough of a water pressure, so I'll tell you, like I said, the first one I got very lucky. I had the water pressure to put the fire sprinkler in was very borderline, and you need a specialized person, like a fire safety person, to put that sprinkler in, and they have to meet their requirements in order to put that sprinkler in. So again, the guy only ended up passing it and putting it in because it was only like a 5-foot run. If it was any longer, I didn't have enough water pressure to utilize the sprinkler system if there was a fire, right? Because that's why you need the water pressure, so the sprinkler actually puts out the fire. I didn't have that. At least I wouldn't have had that if it was any longer than a 5-foot run for the water pipe, with everything else hooked up to it, right? So things like those. So then I would like make sure when I go in, where's the water pipe coming from? Does it, have a half-inch pipe or not? Coming out of the ground. What's the service coming from the city? What size pipe it is? Because that would identify what type of pressure. And throw the taps on, you can tell if it has good water pressure or not. Additionally, so things like those were the two main things that I would look for. And then other things are like how much light there is in the basement, how many windows, what size windows, how much of an opening. The other thing you would need is egress, escape windows, since it's a second unit. So those are the type of things I would start looking for. I recognized that for that first one. And I never had any issues with any of the other properties after that, because I knew what I was looking for going into it. So I would look at a property and say, yeah, this doesn't work. I would run into so many issues with it, and it just wouldn't be cost effective, so I wouldn't bid on that property.
Okay. Are the things that you were looking for those the stipulations that are attached to the permits provided by the state? Is that something that's on? I'm sure every state is different, but is that like a resource that you can get? This is what we will permit a to look like. Okay.
Yeah. So again, this was in Canada, but it should be exactly the same thing in the U.S. You would have your provincial or state legislations and rules, bylaws, etc. And then you have the individual ones from the city as well. So basically, the city is the one. I would recommend just go directly to the city because they would tell you exactly what the rules are, right? So for me, the couple of cities that I worked in, they actually had like PDF printouts of all the rules. Not a thick book, but just all the major rules you need to follow, like how much parking space is required, how much light is required in each room, what the height requirements are, what type of egress, what opening that needs to be, things like those. So all those rules would be in there.
Okay. Is there any way to estimate what it would cost? I mean, is it like generally like 50% additional of the purchase price? Is it like double the purchase price? I know numbers are difficult just with the market and labor.
So it was. Again, I haven't done it since before COVID hit, so prices have gone up significantly. But to do like a gut job and redo the place, it was roughly 100,000. If you want to do like a good.
Okay, about 100,000 for each property to take that single family into it. That's
Exactly.
like a full gut job. Does this take place over a year, maybe a little bit longer, a little bit less?
It depends on how much time and effort you put into it. You can have it done within a couple of months, few months. While I was doing it myself, it took the very first one. It took me, I would say, 2 months to have the upstairs ready to go. And then I lived in the basement and I was really crazy busy with work. So it took me almost 7 months, 8 months to get the downstairs completely done. But again, I was living there myself. So on days that I was like too tired or I was traveling, and that's the other thing, I was traveling 3 weeks a month for work that year as well. So I would work like weekends if I was around on weekends in case I was traveling internationally, like to France or anything like that. It took me a little bit longer because I was traveling a lot for work, and I was doing it completely by myself.
Okay.
But I was living in there, so I wasn't, concerned that I'm losing money or anything like that. I was single at the time, so it was kind of living the bachelor life.
That's cool. Okay.
Construction zones.
Couple more questions. What do you feel your superpower is?
Being resourceful. I've always had the knack to figure things out. Even whether I look at my corporate career or the story I just told you about my first real estate experience doing this conversion. It's just finding a way to figure things out. Corporate wise, every single position I've ever been in, I had no training for. I just got thrown in there saying, "Hey, we need to get this figured out. You go take care of it." Right. I've always been good at trying to figure things out and sorting those. That would be my superpower, I think. Really taking a deeper dive and understanding things and finding solutions for them.
Okay. And then lastly, what do you have going on in your life? You mentioned syndication, but how can since you provided so much value to us, how can I or my audience provide value to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I said, I'm looking at doing syndications now, and that kind of came around. I wish I had known about it earlier. Personally, it's investing in real estate has been a huge passion of mine. I figured out a way to, invest in it. But talking to a lot of my colleagues, I knew everyone was, always wanting to know more of what I was doing, always interested in learning more. But one of the responses I always got was, I don't have time to invest in real estate. Right. That was the biggest response I got from everyone, no matter what level position they were in. And it's true. It takes literally a lot of sacrifices in order to do it. I wasn't spending a lot of time with my family. I wasn't seeing a lot of friends. But that being said, in my mind, your true friends are always going to be around anyways, which was the case. But I focused purely on that. So that's again, that's why I'm shifting into syndications, is because it allows me to still invest in real estate, follow a path that is my passion, but also help people get into real estate and invest in real estate without having to sacrifice their time, basically. So they don't have to actively play a role in investing in real estate. They don't have to worry about where the at least not finding the property and doing all the research work and everything associated with it. We can basically present everything to them and say, here's the location, here's the market, here are the numbers, here are the returns, etc. And they can analyze it based on that, rather than spending all the time to figure and research all that out. So again, for me, it's about, like you said, it's about giving back as well. I have my website. People can go on there, take a look at some free resources that I have. Is very much so geared towards people that, are very busy professionals. They don't have a lot of experience in real estate, but they do have an interest in investing in real estate. So it basically helps them do that. I say, if you go to the website, there's some educational resources that go a little bit deeper into how to do that. They can take a look at that, download those, and learn a little bit more. And then, if
Awesome.
anyone wants to have a chat, they can set up some time, and I can have a conversation with them as well.
Okay, yeah, we'll put all your stuff down in the description below. Thanks, Hammad.
Thank you. Appreciate it.